Hey, everybody, back by popular demand, Matthew Marsden of the Matthew Marsden Show. Some people are saying the greatest export of the United Kingdom, probably all time, even better than Elton John. Some people say he is joining us now. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah. Better than Elton John. That's quite something, right?
I believe it's Sir Elton John. But yes, probably
Elton
true.
John.
Elton John.
Elton John.
Well, your Trump is better than mine. I'm impressed. Your Trump is very good. So, speaking of the UK and exports, looks like they're trying to import fascism. Kind of a rough turn there. You get what I'm saying, though. I've seen, ever since the J.D. Vance speech, everybody has been looking around at what's going on in Europe a little bit more and hearing these bureaucrats say that you can get arrested for saying mean things online. And this is a real, I keep thinking that people in the U.S. I keep coming across, people in the U.S. who refuse to believe, but this is a real thing, right? Like in the U.K., if you say mean things about migrants in particular, they'll show up and they'll arrest you.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely shocking. I mean, Buck, when I was growing up, I mean, my uncles were cops, and the police, the cops there have just become an absolute joke. You know, I mean, like I was literally talking to someone the other day, and they're saying, no, if something happens to you, you have to email them, right? Literally, you can't call them anymore. You have to email them. And I didn't realize, I mean, when I first came to America, I realized that I wasn't free, right, in the UK. I thought that I was, but it was an illusion of freedom. And since Starmer's got in, he has gone full on Stasi. Like, you cannot say anything. It's like, you know, if you say something that will offend the other person, then you must go to jail. And it's like, it's unbelievable what's going on in Europe. But what's worse is actually, it's not just the fact that they are coming after people, literally for memes, right, as you said. They are trying to stop people even thinking those things. This is the weird thing. It's so weird. And it's just accelerated massively with Starmer.
Is there see, and for people who say, because I get this sometimes even on the radio, they're like, why are we talking about Europe? We have problems here in America. Because exactly what they are doing in Europe is what the Democrat Party wants to do here. And I think it's important for people to see that, you know, if Chuck Schumer could lock you up as an American for saying, you know, that you don't want millions of illegals pouring into the country, he would do it. I mean, Kamala would definitely do it. Like, these are people who would use the force of that. We saw it during COVID, too. There's no question. During COVID, if you gathered to protest the idiotic restrictions and face masks, you were a public health danger. But if you wanted to pray to St. George Floyd, the hardened felon who died in an interaction with a police officer, then that was okay. So we all know that the fascist impulse or the authoritarian impulse, same thing, very alive and well here. But I do think that, I mean, you're thinking about the Germans. I'm sure you saw on 60 Minutes, they do this. Like, the Germans come and they knock, like, have you been sharing the memes? And if the answer is yes, if you've been sharing memes that they decide are too nasty, they'll fine you and maybe even put you in prison. I always say to people, too, it's not like they always think this makes them the nice people. And I have to remind everybody, the people that are okay with this are sending men with guns paid by the state to take away your freedom or shoot you, because that's what actual arrest means. It's you do what I say or I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like, you must not say that woman is fat, else you go to the gulag. You know, I mean,
you're mixing culture. Yeah, Germans, Russian, gulag. You're mixing the culture. But I get what you're saying. You're doing well till you threw gulag in there.
Camp but you know, I mean, look, it's Europe is fallen. I mean, I was watching that J.D. Vance speech, which is probably the greatest vice president speech.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Time. It was incredible. Just, I was saying on my show, like, the way that it was written was brilliant. It was brilliantly written, brilliantly delivered. And he just stands there like, I have no F's to give now. I'm just telling you the way it is. And the thing is, I had a friend of mine I got a friend of mine who I grew up with. Now, I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, right? I grew up in a very poor environment.
Wait, where?
My friend
Give me a little more of the bio. Where in the UK? Where was this?
So I literally come from Mordor, like where Tolkien based Mordor on. I come from.
What's it called?
So it's in the Midlands. It's a place called West Bromwich. So are you a fan of like heavy metal music? Do you like heavy metal music?
Yeah, I mean, I know some of it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado, but I'm familiar.
So I come from where Judas Priest comes from.
Oh, yeah, I know Judas Priest. Okay, yeah, I thought we were going to get like obscure here. Yeah.
No, they're like literally lived across the street from where I grew up. So it was rough. But my friend, who was a Grenadier Guard for years, he texted me the other day and he was like, "Did you see JD Vance's speech? It's awesome." So what you've got, and it's really important for Americans to understand, because I think that we kind of like look, especially for the English-speaking countries, and think that they're the same, right? Like Oscar Wilde said, we're two countries separated by a common language. It's not true. Americans still have the frontiersman spirit. They still have that rebellious attitude, like, you're not going to tell me what to do. And a lot of that comes from the fact that you can go outside and you can still get eaten by an animal, right? That does not happen in Europe. And so, but there are people over there. Europe is, for whatever the people want to say in the mainstream media, it's worse over there, but like they've got no alternative media. They are looking to America saying, "Save us."
Wait, so if you're like some like burly British guy from what, Hull, right? They're tough guys from Hull. Is that right? That area, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm like from the north, and I'm like, you know, like we do all the, you know, I'm from Hull. And are those guys okay with all like the DEI training and this? You know, do you see what I mean? Like, because in this country, yes, half the country believes in this secular this secular religion of madness that is the sort of modern Democrat amalgamation, wokeness, whatever. But in the UK, but half of us think that they're insane, right? You're telling me that half doesn't exist in the UK, really? Like, there's not actually a robust, large opposition party who's saying things like, yeah, we need to be able to say things that offend people, even people who are immigrants, even people who are non-white. And that's just the way it's going to be, because that's what freedom means.
There are people that think there's not a real party. So I think that what you have, it's slightly different there, because what you have is Generation X and older, that's the football hooligan generation. So literally, we would go and watch the soccer every weekend, and there would be fights, right? Every weekend between the different two soccer teams. And it just used to happen. And that was kind of the way that generation would kind of like get out that aggression, the depression or whatever it was, living in a crappy area. And they would do that. And that was gradually phased out over the years, right? To make it's more like, I'm going to go and eat my prawn sandwich at the football now, right? But there's still an entire generation of people out there that love a good fight, right? In all honesty, they're a little bit more if they were in America, they'd go hunting, if you know what I mean. Like they'd have a way of being able to express themselves as men, right? And over there, it's like, what are you going to do? You get into a fight, right? I know that might sound really reductive, but it's true. So what you've got a bunch of people out there. Now it's the Generation X, and actually the youngsters, kind of like here, like the youngsters right now in America are becoming the most conservative of it. For a very, very long time, right?
Yeah.
But what you have, you've got like the kind of rough and ready guys that kind of grew up in Thatcher's Britain, that were told, like Reagan, like, you can go and achieve whatever you want, and they did. And they're like, hang on a second, we don't like this. We don't like what's going on. But then you've got another group, I'd say the other half are like, la, 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 la. I don't want to accept it. So it's not quite the same as here. It's not quite that they're always in the UK. They're a little bit to the right center and a little bit to the left of the center, right? There's not like the big swings like we have here. So I think you've got an elite that is pushing the agenda.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
No,
like
go ahead.
Like we've seen, like we've seen with USAID, you've got an elite, but then you've got a bunch of people that really hate it and a bunch of people that just don't want to don't want to admit that it exists.
Right. Well, it's funny because I think
Right.
we talked about this, but I went to Scotland with my wife on vacation 2 years ago in the summer, and you know, Americans have this very our view, you know, the same way that I think foreigners sometimes have a cartoonish view of America. Well, America is so big, and there's so many different regions and cultures that you know, it's hard even for Americans to kind of understand the full scope of like what's going on here. But foreigners who come here and they're just like, oh, it's just all like cheeseburgers and everyone weighs 600 pounds and goes to Six Flags Great Adventure. We have a little bit of that, I think, as Americans when it comes to Scotland, though, because we think Braveheart, bagpipes, and like whiskey, right? Like that's kind of our and
Yeah.
by the way, it's beautiful. Like I love it. I thought it was amazing as a place to visit, but they're communists, basically. I mean, they're like it's like a socialist country, effectively, in terms of what their beliefs are and their healthcare system. I know they're, you know, are they under the NHS? Or are they different than the NHS?
Yeah, they are. They're under the NHS.
They're on the NHS. So there is no, like you mentioned, the frontier spirit. Like we would think of like the Highlanders. The Highlanders is like for the tourists. Like the real Highlanders, the people who live up there, are like, where's my socialized medicine and my free stuff? It's a little depressing. I was like, this isn't what I thought. There's no William Wallace running around here. There's no spirit of William Wallace. So a little bit
You're
of
like, Mel Gibson's full of crap.
Yeah.
Like that. It's not the way. No, but you know, the funny thing is, Buck, it's actually like the old working class and actually the newer working class, but the old working class that grew up, as I said, in Thatcher's Britain, that actually made something of themselves, that they were told, listen, you go out there, you can do something, you can make something of yourself. Like they are the more edgy, and the aristocracy and the more middle class that kind of like inherited their money.
Yeah.
They're the socialists, right? They're the ones that are, you know, oh, you know, we've got to let them in. I mean, literally, but
yeah,
literally,
a soft generation. Yeah.
yeah, it's very soft. And I mean, look, I was talking to someone that near where I come from is a place called Walsall, and Walsall, right? Walsall. And they've been bringing all these migrants in. I hate the word, illegal aliens, because we all know that it's a Trojan horse, right? The asylum seekers just bullshit. It's not true. It's a Trojan horse. So they were bringing them into a local hotel there. And somebody that I know was like, you can't walk down the streets. They're just hanging around outside the hotel. People got to understand that this is what they're doing with their phones and whatever, standing outside the hotel. And I said, isn't that like dangerous? Like, is that like a no-go area? Literally the next week, a girl that worked at the hotel, she had an argument with one of the migrants about something that he was buying from the snack shop, you know, because I think they have like, you know, when you go into the Best Westerns or whatever, and you have a snack shop that's out and you pick it and then you take it. He followed her to the train station and stabbed her to death. And I'm like, guys, wake up. These, our societies are just not compatible. Yeah. They're just not compatible.
If you say that stuff in Germany, they lock you up. Hold on one second here. We'll come back to this. I actually want to talk to you about Elon and the government waste in a second. I agree with you, by the way, on the social compatibility or lack thereof of different cultures. This is where the tectonic plates of civilization are rubbing and creating friction and earthquakes, and it's not good. Last week's report on the inflation figures were not good, my friends, and it looks like inflation is here to stay in the U.S. Sorry, we're talking a lot about Britain, but stay in the U.S. for a while. So what can you do? Because your dollars are going to be worth less. Birch Gold, my friends. Gold is the answer for so many people who want to make a smart decision and prepare for the likelihood of continued inflation and the debt piling up. I trust Birch Gold. They're the same company that's released a new study of how gold prices are going to fare in Trump's presidency, with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy of that report along with Birch Gold's free information, text my name Buck to the number 989898 or go online to birchgold.com/Buck. Again, text my name Buck to the number 989898 or go online to birchgold.com/Buck for your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. There is no obligation, only information. All right, now, Elon, the stuff that's coming out here is wild. And I keep needing to take a moment to say, hold on. Elon, I mean, I think Elon's a genius. I think that's fair to say. Elon's a genius, especially in this area of efficiency and problem solving at the highest level for large organizations. Like he's as good at this, if not the best at this in the world. There's stuff coming out that's just insane, though. I mean, you're talking about. I'm trying to pull some of this stuff up as I'm talking to you, because the numbers, to me, you sit here and you go, how is it possible that, I mean, for example, there are 390 million Social Security numbers that are active in this country. There's 330 million people. It's not like we got a million extra. We got 60 million extra in the system somehow, and they can't figure this out. That doesn't inspire confidence.
Well, you know what, as well, they've got like one person who is 349 years old. I mean, you can't make it up. There's not even like, they didn't even stop and say, like, you know, when you go and get your driving test, your driving license, they're like, well, you know, you're 65 now, you should probably go and get your eyes tested. Like, somebody's out there like Count Dracula taking Social Security. I was just wondering, Buck, do you think that this is these are Social Security numbers that they've given to illegals, and they're just like, okay, just take them because they do have them? Do you think that's what it is, or do you think they're just scamming the system?
No, I think that there's a I don't know what the portion is. I think there are millions of fraudulent Social Security numbers in the system because of illegals. I mean, I know that Social Security fraud in that sense, right? Like having a fake Social Security number, or it's identity fraud or document fraud. I know that happens in large numbers with illegal immigrants. So yeah, I've got to think, with illegal aliens. We're allowed to say that again, by the way. It was the legal term for my entire life until Joe Biden. So I think that's a part of it. But this stuff is crazy. I mean, when you're talking about and the thing is, I want it all to be verified, because I don't want to start saying numbers that. But here's something that I tell everybody, Matthew. It has long been understood that Medicare fraud, just Medicare, which is a huge program, but it's only one thing. The estimate, and no one has ever said this is crazy or disagrees with, the estimate of Medicare fraud in the United States yearly is $60 to $80 billion. Now, that's what they were willing to tell us about, and just sort of cost of business, like, oh, it's 60 to 80 billion a year. I think Elon's going to find Medicare fraud is actually 2 to 3 times that, which would mean that you're talking about at least 100 billion plus, maybe 150 billion of Medicare fraud, which is stunning. That's money that the taxpayers are sending, not just to American, doctors who aren't actually doing the procedures and stuff. That's one way. They're sending it to like random medical consortiums overseas, because they have, it's an overseas bank account. They're not even doctors. It's just a scam. The whole thing's a scam.
No, I mean, it's you got to wonder, haven't you? I mean, we've been gaslit so much by the left. You have to look and say, well, hang on a second. Like, why is any politician upset with the fact that Elon Musk is cutting waste? Like, how is that a winning argument for the left? Oh yeah, he's found that we're giving like $50 million to study shrimps on a treadmill. I mean, and people can't afford their groceries. It's just dumb. So I think that what we're seeing is, it's really an amazing time to be alive, actually, because we're going to see the corruption, and we're going to see why people are behaving in this illogical manner, right? Because if I'm on the right or I'm on the left, and someone uncovers fraud, I'm going to be happy about it, right? You'd think that, but it's only one. And right now, and I do want to preface this with this, Buck, is right now it's only the left. They're not the only ones on the take, right? Let's be completely clear about this, right? They're not the only ones. And I'm all for it, like, expose them all. And I think it's the greatest advertisement for small government that you will ever see. Like, these budgets need to come in. They need to be locally controlled, right? We need to be looking at what we're spending, just even in our own cities, in our own, municipal areas. And then it should go out like that from there. And the government, should just be out of all of it.
I agree. And I think that we're going to find out some very interesting stuff from the all of the efforts of Doge. Also want to tell everybody out there, for the rifle enthusiasts in particular, if you want to switch out the upper part of your rifle, the best name in the business is Bear Creek Arsenal. But they've got full rifles to sell you that are fantastic. They've also got pistols, lots of wonderful different firearms to choose from, all made in North Carolina, an all-American company. I've got some Bear Creek Arsenal firearms here at home. My favorite is my Grizzly, which is a 9mm Bear Creek Arsenal handgun. They make the whole thing themselves, all machined right in North Carolina. So whether you're interested in an AR-15, a hunting rifle, or a handgun, Bear Creek Arsenal has you covered at the best prices you're going to see for firearms of this quality. Go to bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/buck, and take 10% off your order with my first name, Buck, as your coupon code. Mr. Marsden, closing up shop here with you. First of all, everyone should go check out the Matthew Marsden podcast. It's fantastic. If nothing else, he's got a cool accent, and you'll remember him from Black Hawk Down, which is, I still think, a top 10, maybe even top 5 all-time war movie for me. So that's a pretty cool thing. About movies, though, I wanted to ask you this. There's been a cultural shift in corporate America where they're no longer spitting in the face of half the country and saying, what are you going to do about it? Companies are now like, hey, like maybe we shouldn't, hate on 160 million people or something like that. So is this going to affect the more creative industries, you think, as in, can we just get some TV series that aren't like woke trash being made by Netflix, Amazon, et cetera? Or is that just, am I hoping for too much even in the Trump era?
No, I think, by the way, I do have a Bear Creek upper as well. So I just wanted to
there
go
we
back
go.
to that as well.
Good man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I do have one. I think that there will be a pushback just because Hollywood loves money and they're not making it. In fact, they're losing it hand over fist. I mean, what you're seeing with, Captain America, it's going to lose a ton of money, which it shouldn't really. I mean, it shouldn't lose a ton of money, but the whole concept was terrible. They've probably sunk like 300 odd million into it. But I think that what you're not going to find, you saw it in the BAFTAs, right? Like you saw it with the BAFTAs yesterday, and they were all like, "Oh, Trump!" And the funny thing was, everyone was like, "You guys are irrelevant and boring." You're seeing that there's a transgender. I don't know how you break it up, but going for the Oscar for Best Actress. So it's deeply ingrained in the actual people, like the actors. But there are a lot of people like someone like Jerry Bruckheimer knows how to make a great film. He knows how to make a great TV show. Michael Bay, same thing, and they're not woke at all. So if the studio decides to change course, then they have all the facilities and the ability to do it. What I would like to see, Buck, is the people that have been ostracized out the industry, like me, that have actually been in the industry and done stuff, create things outside, because we need to be able, we can't go through, it's going to be cyclical again, right? Like we need to start curating the arts. It's really, really important, because after Ronald Reagan won, from then on, we started losing the culture war. And that was a massive mistake. And it's still really difficult. I mean, you're here, right? You're here on media right now. This is the new media. New media changed the landscape for Donald Trump and allowed him to win the election, right? It really did help, because everyone's tuning out of regular, mainstream media. But there's an opportunity now for us to invest, and like us old farts now, to mentor the younger generation to create things outside of the studio system. We don't need them anymore. We have all the great stories. So I think what I would like to do is see more of a focus on conservatives funding stuff outside, but not like this is a Christian movie, right? I want to see like the Roy Benavidez story. That's what I want to see. I want to see like they did Midway, right? These are the movies that we can do, but we have a very small window of opportunity, because people like Mel Gibson, who's clearly a genius, Stallone, all those guys, they're getting older. So we need to be able to start funding these projects, and then conservatives will come to them. And again, like you mentioned earlier about Europe, it's really important. I grew up loving Rocky and Rambo. I grew up loving Rocky and Rambo. Rocky was the movie that said to me as a working class kid, if you work hard enough, you can make it. And that is a message that goes all the way across the world. And if you think about it, Buck, there wasn't from 2000, after we came out with Black Hawk Down, there wasn't a pro-military movie for 10 years.
Yeah, I know. It's remarkable. You think about it. My wife and I talk about this. We say, hey, Band of Brothers is, I think, one of the best TV shows ever made. I mean, at least for me. Like, I just found it so engrossing, enjoyable, everything you want in a series. It's like, why not make more series like that, right? It doesn't have to be the same, even the same war, the same period. I'm just saying, about men-at-arms, make it realistic, make the characters come to life, make it seem like it all matters. And instead, I mean, it's just amazing. You go through Netflix, what is all this trash they're making? They're just making trash all the time. So I hope that all changes, and I hope you're involved in some of it. Mr. Matthew Marsden, always a pleasure, sir. Good to see you, and we will talk soon.
You got it, buddy. Thanks for having me.